This is Ain't No Way MMA. Today we're going to be talking about our UFC 310 reactions.
We got some reactions for this one because holy shit, holy. Okay, so we're gonna just start from the bottom. I already want to talk about a few guys specifically, but we're gonna start from the bottom, go the way to top. So prelims, early prelims, all that. Run through it real quick. Bottom to top, starting with Candy Njoku and Lucas Brzeski. Lucas Brzeski sucks, just like I said. Candy Njoku's defense is still garbage, but he knocked him out in the first, just like I thought. No real surprise there. Pretty happy with the result. Candy flatlined him pretty early. Nasty right hand. That's all she wrote. He hit him with some nasty high kicks just before the knockout too. He looked like really flowy, just a little bit too relaxed. I feel like he really should have been flowing and moving with the punches a little bit better. But I mean, Lucas Brzeski isn't really good enough to knock him out anyways, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, from there, Chase Hooper Masterclass. What did I say? Clay Guida, just like Dana White said, should retire. I love Clay Guida, fan favorite for sure, but I really think it's time to hang out the gloves. Maybe one more fight and have that be your retirement fight, if not this one. I know he didn't take his gloves off like Anthony Smith, which we'll get to later. But still, I think either this fight or his next should be his last fight.
I did get Chase Hooper exactly right. Band for band, round 2 submission, golden. It was beautiful.
Yeah, no, Chase Hooper was so flowy on the ground. And honestly, Clay Guida brought it. I mean, there were some really good scrambles before the finish, and Clay Guida really brought it. He tried his best. But I mean, Chase Hooper was 3 steps ahead on every single sequence on the ground. He ended up getting him in a mount. He ended up hitting some crazy elbows in between and some good striking. And I mean, his striking on the stand-up looked really clean before he got him down too. And he filled out his frame so much since his last fight. He's finally starting to fill out his frame for lightweight, and he looked comfortable during the weight cut. He actually talks a little bit more like a man now, a little bit less prepubescent. So it's big improvements everywhere. He looked better on the mic, and he's still a dork. At the end of his fight, he's like giving fucking jazz hands. I'm like, yo, Chase Hooper. He's a little bit of a dork. I love him though. Next on the slate, Michael Chiesa, Max Griffin. This was the first fight I got completely wrong, and I'll fully fess up to it. I'm blaming Max Griffin for it all. Bro walked in there like he's never fought a day in his life. Easiest matchup ever is a guy who can box and can't defend his legs. What did Max Griffin go in there deciding to do immediately? Let me try and box up Michael Chiesa with no volume, random pot shots, no fake shots in between, no feints, no nothing. And when I get tired, let me try and grapple the grappler. And he just got dominated. He got dominated on the feet, honestly, in my opinion. I didn't think Max Griffin looked good on the feet at all, the whole fight. Overall, Michael Chiesa just schooled him. And that's not me giving props to Michael Chiesa, because in my opinion, Michael Chiesa still isn't good. But Max Griffin looked like wet sand out there.
I can't begin to describe the disappointment I felt where someone who is known for like high volume and kicks and everything didn't throw a single body or leg kick, and he tried to wrestle the wrestler.
Yes, it's kind of cringe. Max Griffin usually throws a lot of kicks, high kicks, leg kicks, body kicks, something like that. I don't remember him throwing a single kick in that entire fight, not one, which is extremely weird and off color. Maybe it's from the threat of grappling. He's afraid of someone grabbing his leg. But if he's afraid of grappling, why in the third round he's shooting for the legs? An absolute travesty, in my opinion. I mean, he deserved to lose. He fought like a loser, and he lost. So Joshua Van Masterclass. Just like I said, total mismatch, absolute mismatch. Cody Durden looked completely lost, especially from the get-go. Joshua Van decided, I'm going to strike with this guy, and I'm not going to let him take me down. He barely got any control on the ground, got about 2 takedowns off Cody Durden onto Joshua Van. Joshua Van was correctly defending the takedowns the entire sequence, putting the hand down on the head, keeping his hip high, trying to stay in his base over Cody Durden's base. And Durden was kind of just ankle hugging the whole first round. And at the end of that first round, it started to get pieced up a little bit by Joshua Van. And then as soon as the second hit, we saw the striking discrepancy I was talking about in the first video. Joshua Van put them hands on him. Kicks to the legs constantly to keep him guessing. Counter strikes were perfect. Hooks, jabs. That jab was nasty. I think Cody Durden broke his nose. Didn't get dropped, but got wobbled about like 5 or 6 times. I mean, it was such a great performance from Joshua Van. Gets in the mic. He's humble. Thanks his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and then immediately, shouts out the flag from Myanmar. He mentioned in the post-fight interview that he wanted to be able to show the Myanmar flag, which I'm pretty sure it's illegal along with the Russian flag at the moment in the UFC. So we'll see about getting that done. But I thought it was such an amazing performance from Joshua Van. The grappling looked good. He's still young. The volume was nasty. The power was there for a flyweight, especially like a guy against Cody Durden, who has a really good chin. He wobbled him, and I'll give Cody Durden props. He's tough. He actually really stayed on his feet when I really thought he wouldn't.
It is fantastic to see a new prospect come in and absolutely dominate the way he did. He's 23 years old and kicking ass.
Active. He's super active. That's what I love the most about it. Reminds me of Kevin Holland when he got into UFC. Constantly taking fights, short notice or not, dominating, landing well in good fashion, and being really good at striking on the feet, but having takedown defense, something Kevin Holland never really has had. So it's an interesting way to bring up a good flyweight prospect.
The only thing I will say is I think the UFC kind of did him dirty, at least on socials, because for the whole night they were posting, oh, this person won this fight in this fashion, or showing the clip of the finish. Absolutely nothing for Joshua Van.
They posted every win back to back to back to back, and then they just completely left Joshua Van out of the mix until later in the night when they just showed every prelim winner, and he was like 6 slides down. Joshua Van got fight of the night in my opinion. I mean, he fully dominated back to front, and he made it competitive. He made it exciting. There wasn't a point where I wasn't yelling at the damn TV. Awesome performance from Joshua Van. His stock is rising tremendously. Now he's a top 15 flyweight. I don't see a lot of other flyweights that are going to have the same resume as him. I mean, I'd love to see him go against a guy like Tatsuo Taira in the top 10. Maybe someone like Roy Val after another win. And then, a title shot. There's the flyweights begging for contenders. It's begging because Pantoja is kind of just sitting with his hands in his pockets, like kind of destroying every prospect. Is anyone left? That's why I call it Demetrius. But we'll get to that later. Chris Weidman and Eric Anders. Okay, this one was way more exciting than we initially thought, which was pretty sweet in my opinion. We really thought it'd be a snoozer decision, maybe a Chris Weidman eye poke fest. And there was some fouls within the fight, but they weren't really called by the ref, which was it's not a big deal. But hey, really entertaining fight. They both got dropped in the first. Eric Anders started on top with a really good drop and a head kick. And then Chris Weidman followed it up with a really good slip right or left hand in the pocket. Chris Weidman ran out of gas, and Eric Anders had all the gas and just proceeded to brutalize him on the ground. Eric Anders' grappling is significantly improved. I mean, the striking looked like it always does. Sound and technical, no crazy power. But hey, man, on the ground, he looked amazing. He was dictating the pace. He was passing the guard. His half guard looked amazing with his ground and pound. Must have landed like 50 straight strikes to get him out of there. And people were saying like bad stoppage. Dude, Chris Weidman, there was like 7 times he could have stopped it because he looked almost unconscious 5 or 6 times, just eating a hammer fist, eating an elbow. And Eric Anders kept the pressure on, and it was humble on the microphone after. He didn't ask for, top 15. I'm going for a title shot. No, he says, I'm just here to accept any fight they give me. I'm on a little bit of a winning path now. I think he's 2-1 or 3-1 in his last 4. On the up and up, slowly but surely. I like Eric Anders, and I think you throw him in there with another really fun guy in the middleweight division, and he'll make some fireworks. He always does. I've never seen a boring Eric Anders fight, which is saying a lot. But yeah, Chris Weidman, as Dana White also mentioned in his post-fight interview, he should retire. It didn't look good in there. The cardio wasn't there. He didn't look as energetic or passionate. And against a guy like Eric Anders, who's 37 years old, couldn't finish him. I think it's a sign to get out of the sport. You got your money. You're an analyst for the UFC. Don't get any more brain damage, Chris. Let's just go home, man. Unfortunately, we have to mention Brian Battle. Brian Battle versus Randy Brown. Overall, just a lot of a clinch fest. Honestly, disappointing pace from Brian Battle. He usually brings by this marauder, walk through any shot energy. He still brought that, but it seemed like he wanted to bring him to the cage constantly because there was some sort of cardio issue.
I truthfully think that his weight cut brutalized him. I don't know. He didn't look that healthy when he did the weigh-ins, and it was a rough time. Already 4 pounds over. I think his game plan changed a lot going into that fight, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't really know where Brian Battle was assuming that he would get the takedowns from. Randy Brown's really tricky, tall frame, just like he said in the post-fight interview, and I didn't really understand the game plan and if he threw it out the window or not. I don't know if he really deserved the win. I don't know if Randy Brown did either. I thought it was a really lackluster performance from both of them. Randy Brown, there's a lot of times where he would land a combo and then he'd just stop and back up. And I'm like, hey, man, you have him rocked. Let's go for something. And same thing with Brian Battle. He'd land a good combo and then shoot for a double leg and sit there on his knees. I didn't really understand where either of them were going with that. So disappointing matchup. It's good to see Brian Battle get another win. We love Brian Battle. Let's hope it's a little bit more of a Brian Battle fight next time out. Listen here, kid. Aljamain Sterling beat Movsar Evlaev. I don't care what you have to say. I don't care. I know Movsar is the decision merchant. Cool. Whatever. I don't care. You get slammed on your head 17 times in one fight and you come out with the victory. I don't get it. Aljamain Sterling on every scorecard won the first round. We know why. Movsar did nothing. He had no success, not on the feet, not on the ground. Second round, Movsar. He had the control. He controlled the majority of the round. It makes sense. Third round comes around. Aljamain slamming him, multiple takedowns. He was 6 of 8 on takedowns tonight to Movsar's 4 of 5, which, I mean, it was a grappling masterclass from both of them. They both showcased how talented their grappling is. I get that. But Aljamain showed out. He won the majority of that round. The first 3 minutes and 30 seconds was all gas from Aljamain. And yes, Movsar got the more dominant position to end the fight, but it doesn't matter. Movsar lost. And in all 3 scorecards, they put Movsar over Aljo. I think it has to be the UFC pushing an agenda or something, because it doesn't make any sense to how the judges saw all 3 rounds that way. I don't know. Didn't sit right with me. I thought Aljamain did enough to win. He had more pressure, more pace, bigger moments. Movsar, I can't think of a big moment he had. At the end of the round, he ended up, smudging him as he does to every guy he fights. But that's about it. There wasn't a lot really going on for Movsar, but a lot going on for Aljo. So it's disappointing to see him lose like that, especially on the prelims. Yeah, hopefully Aljamain gets another good matchup soon and gets his name back up there, because we don't want to see Movsar versus anyone right now, and especially Dana. Dana even voiced his concern with how uninteresting Movsar can be at times.
It was very unfortunate, the disrespect that Aljo ended up getting in this card, where he was pushed back down into the prelims. He's a former champion. He always puts on at least a grappling masterclass, but I don't know what made them choose the lineup the way that they did.
I just think that Dana White doesn't really appreciate grapplers that aren't specifically Dagestani or American top team. If they're not from some big promotion that's gonna, promote them to be higher, they don't care. They just want you to be big on the mic and big entertaining guys. Movsar and Aljo are quiet. They're just amazing at what they do. Dana doesn't like that. Unfortunately, they got dropped and Bryce Mitchell got brought to the main card. So I'm just going to pretend like that sits right. All right. So I was completely wrong about Luque. I had Themba Gorimbo winning by decision. Luque, I think, is fully recovered from his injuries, which is, a great thing. I was rooting for Luque the entire time. The Sound Assassin is one of my favorite guys to watch in there. His Darce is deadly, and he showed it again. He dropped Themba early with the right hand, I believe, and followed him to the ground. Darce cinched it out cold. And Themba looked like Themba out there. Didn't really have the best movement. Luque caught him out and he got dropped and put out. So not too much to say there. I'm happy Luque's recovered from his injuries and I want him to keep winning. Give him a top 15 guy next and see how he performs. Hopefully it translates correctly. And yeah, Anthony Smith needs to retire. Anthony Smith needs to get a therapist or some sort of support system that gets him from stepping in a cage to deal with mental problems. It's really upsetting that his best friend died. I send out all my condolences to him and his family, but it's really upsetting to see that his family, his coaches thought, hey, let's let an emotional guy who's been known to get knocked out before and really hurt someone we care about, let's let him into a cage while he's emotional. Look what happens. Smith went in there emotional. Dominic Reyes said in the post-fight interview that Smith was asking him to punch him. Like he wanted to be punched in the face. He wanted to feel something. That sounds like a mentally distressed, hurt man to me that shouldn't be fighting anyone, let alone the UFC anywhere. And it was disappointing performance and Reyes did his thing. I mean, it's expected from skill to skill, but I don't even really want to see Smith ever in the UFC unless he really gets some mental help and changes a lot, because this is heavily disappointing to watch and a little bit depressing.
I hope he does well in his retirement. He did take off his gloves after the fight. He did say he wasn't sure what the future holds for him, but it might be time.
It should be time, and I don't want to see him fight again. I don't. I like Anthony Smith as an analyst. I know everyone loves to hate on him, but it's because he's an active light heavyweight. He has to talk garbage about other light heavyweights. That's how it works. It's how the UFC works. People can't get through that through their thick skulls. If you want to be a contender, you have to usually spike your name up. Anthony Smith's really good at that. He was always in the media. Look at it. And that's why he's a popular figure now. But he should stick to being an analyst and spending time with his family, because otherwise this is going to be a disaster. I don't want to see Anthony Smith accumulate any sort of brain damage. He's still clearing the brain. So let's keep it that way, please. Oh, Nate Landwehr, Nate the Train, baby. Why? Okay, so Nate Landwehr got outclassed, out cardioed, out Asianed. I mean, Duho Choi put the hands on him the start to finish. The grappling was better. He hit him with a nasty upper body throw. DC on the mic was like, whoa! Like, he was impressed. I mean, had him wet in his pants.
Ho Choi looked fantastic. I haven't seen that from him ever.
I think the last time we saw a Duho Choi performance like that was from the fight of the year with Cub Swanson. And even then, he lost that fight and his cardio looked bad in the second and third. This fight, I mean, he looked effortless performance. He was quick as hell with the hands. Nate Landwehr was overwhelmed from the start. I thought in the second, Duho Choi would start to get tired, his hands, starting to shake him out and stuff. No, he just blew through his guard. Nate Landwehr has a nasty upper high guard, but it did not matter because he blew through it every time. I don't know what's next for Nate Landwehr. He's still a fun fight, but he knows he's not top 15 material. I'd love to see Duho Choi against top 15 because he looked amazing. You can put him with just about any guy in the top 10 to 15, and I think he'd give him a really good fight, like a guy like rematch against like Charles Jourdain or something, because I know he performed badly against him. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see Duho Choi's future. I'm going to give you guys a really good Kron Gracie impression. Okay. I already was a non-fan of Kron Gracie. You guys know this. But man, I'm even more of a non-Gracie fan, but even more of a Bryce Mitchell fan. Just wanted to pull guard, try and work from the guard. The only funny part was he wasn't doing anything from the guard. Bryce Mitchell was out grappling him, out striking him, and then out slamming him. Slammed him into the canvas, followed up with 2 elbows, put him out of there. Bryce Mitchell with the fire on the mic as usual. Kron Gracie, I don't even think I saw an interview of him before the fights, because you know how Kron Gracie does. He doesn't even talk. Dude's just an idiot. Kron Gracie's the kind of guy you don't want in the UFC. Doesn't promote himself, doesn't strike, likes to pull guard, won't wrestle. Basically not a fighter. Just kind of a guy who wants to get fluke submissions and like easy money. Uses his name to boost himself up.
Now, just imagine for a moment you're someone who doesn't watch UFC or is a very casual fan, and you see a grown man wrap his legs around someone else's waist and pull them to the ground, and then lay there like a dead fish.
Are you telling me you don't like seeing pulling guard in the UFC?
No, not really.
I don't think anyone does. I think it only applies for like one guy ever. I'll give it to Ryan Hall, but that's because he's one of the most incredible BJJ artists I can think of off the top of my head. And he actually was able to implement his grappling into a way with like Granby rolls, Eminari rolls, stuff like that. And he made it interesting. Kron Gracie couldn't do that.
There is a difference between someone jumping guillotine, for example, and jumping into, someone else being in their guard versus just anytime, oh, I got smacked in the face, I need to hug this man.
One time Kron Gracie would get into a clinch, he just pulled guard. And Bryce Mitchell caught wind of that, as anyone with a brain would, and he just slammed him into the mat and elbowed him out. And I was absolutely ecstatic. I was like, the fight's over. I don't ever want to see Kron Gracie again. And lo and behold, guess who got removed just yesterday? Kron Gracie. Don't have to see him anymore. Bye-bye. I'm sorry, Volkov. I'm sorry. They did you dirty, man. They absolutely did you dirty.
Thank you to the judges for saving one of my parlays. I was staring at the TV with Gabe, and we heard the words split decision, and I was screaming. How did it come to that? That is insane. What, looking at those scorecards after the fact, especially.
Volkov won rounds 2 and 3 so decisively. I've never seen a clear 29-28 in my life. It wasn't a domination, but it was a clear. Volkov dominated the rounds, got the takedowns to control, landed better strikes, and they just handed the win to Gane. Even after Dana White was on in front of Volkov saying, they screwed you. They absolutely screwed you. They screwed the pooch. You got robbed. And it's upsetting that the UFC still has no control over what the judges think, what they do, how to train them, how to punish them. They have no control over it. And it's an upsetting and constant issue in the UFC that I wish I could see resolved, but I don't know how they resolve that. That's up to the commissions, I guess. But yeah, Gane wins by unanimous decision or split decision. And my pick was UD for Sorgon. I wasn't completely wrong, but I wish I was because, man, Volkov really deserved that win. He showed out. He looked fast on the feet. His striking was clean, and his grappling was even better. So, I don't know, man. It's disappointing that the judges still think about the UFC in this way. Shavkat and Ian Garry, the so-called marauder fight of the night, a little bit boring at moments. I think the only guy who made it somewhat entertaining was Shavkat. Landed a good spinning back fist, threw some crazy spinning kicks, landed decently on the feet through the first 4 rounds. Fifth round, Ian Garry really showed some improved grappling, got the neck, pulled real tight on that chin for the rear naked choke. Didn't get it, but I mean, it's the most danger we've ever seen Shavkat Rakhmonov since Jeff Neal rocked him in that second round back and about a year ago. Ian Garry looked good on the feet, at least when it comes defensively. But the grappling was improved offensively, but worse defensively. He loved to do a body triangle when he was on his back guard, which leaves you open for no submission opportunities or really any opportunities for any sort of offense, even getting up. You never want to pull a body triangle unless you're on someone's back. So it was really interesting that decided to do that. Ian Garry kind of let that victory walk away from him. Shavkat wasn't his normal marauder self, less volume, worse cardio. In my book, Shavkat took a step down and Ian Garry took a slight step up. Ian Garry did perform better than I thought. But I mean, Shavkat's now booked against Bilal for whenever Bilal's toe, heals up. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes from there. I lean Shavkat because I want him to win. But if he performed like he did against Ian Garry, he's going to lose. Bilal will murder him, which is super cringe to say out loud. I'm not a Bilal fan. Bilal, forget the name Muhammad. But I can't see a world where Bilal doesn't win if he performs like Shavkat just did, where it was like a Leon Edwards type performance, where you're barely really throwing much, your cardio looks off, your grappling looks off. He squeezed by the victory, but not by a lot. I got this one pretty close to spot on. Pantoja's grappling proved to be too much, just like I did assume in the first place. I thought Kaya Sakura would actually at least get to round 3 or 4. He did not. He really showed out in the first. I thought Kaya Sakura's striking looked clean, crisp, and he actually, in my opinion, first round was Kaya Sakura on the feet until he got taken down. Pantoja's overwhelming marauder, I'm going to eat a strike, give you 4 more, and take you down in the process, always works out. I mean, I don't see a guy in featherweight really challenging him, or flyweight that is, challenging him. Maybe in a few years, Joshua Van, or maybe in a few years, Tatsuro Taira, if he learns what head movement is. But other than that, I don't know what you do if you're Pantoja. Pantoja won that fight by rear naked choke in the second, and he proceeded to call a guy out who's in retirement, in Demetrius Johnson, because who else do you call out? There's no one else who's going to fight you. You're not going to fight Brandon Royval again. You already whooped his ass. You're not going to fight Brandon Moreno again. You already won a suspect split decision. But Brandon Moreno is coming off a loss to Brandon Royval, who's above him on the rankings, so you can't do that fight. Who do you fight? There's really no one specifically that jumps out that you can fight for the belt. From here, I don't know what really you can do if you're Pantoja. So I understand the call out, but you can't call out retired guys who haven't been in the UFC for 5-6 years. It's not going to really do you anything for you. Great showing from Pantoja. His third title defense in a row, and he looks clean. He looks solid. No complaints on his end. I think Kaya Sakura has a great future in the top 10 of flyweight division. No one is going to stand with him. I don't even think a guy like Brendan Moreno, who I'm a huge fan of, I think that would actually be a really entertaining fight if you did a guy like Kaya Sakura versus Brendan Moreno. It'd be interesting. But I think Brandon Moreno's grappling would get the better of him. I don't know whose grappling doesn't get the better of him, at least with a showing like that where he defended almost 0 to no takedowns. So really fun card overall. I was disappointed in the main card and some fights like Brian Battle, but people like Joshua Van and Chase Hooper really showed out to actually make it a pretty fun card, especially for the prelims on. But yeah, I would say I'd rate this card like a good 7.5 out of 10 for a pay-per-view. I wish it was a little bit better for the end of the year. We still got Joaquin Buckley, Colby Covington next, so I'm excited and staying tuned for that one. So that'll be exciting.